Someone has said that this Sunday's readings should be called Christian Economics 101. I'm afraid some of us don't feel comfortable with this story of the debtor and the manager. But you know, if you look at it in the light of the times in which Jesus was living, it makes a lot of sense, because the manager could have been deducting, knocking off, we would say, his own commission from what was owed for the produce. And that's okay. He was also making friends for the future, and that's okay. Nothing dishonest there. He could have been knocking off his owner's profit, however, and we would say that that's dishonest. Although in that culture, the owner may have come out looking better than he was before, because in that culture, the only thing that goes ahead of wealth is honor. My good name, my reputation in the community. And if this man had knocked off all that money from people who owed it to him, people in the community would have thought he was just the greatest guy going. So it might not be as dishonest as it seems, and the owner may not have lost as much as he might have lost if we read it in the light of our own economic system. The message of Jesus here is, and this is really critical because we are living in that time of year now in the scriptures and the liturgy where we are thinking about what Jesus wants of us, not meditating on what he did for us as we did from Advent to Pentecost. What does he expect of us? And the message here basically is this, that our relationship with his Father, our relationship with God, is exactly the same as our relationship with each other. How we deal with each other is the determining factor in our relationship with God. As long as you did it to one of these, the least of my brothers and sisters, you did it to me. Don't forget, God for us is Jesus of Nazareth, God coming into us, into our culture, into our lives, into our humanity. He's now one of us, and so he's saying the way you treat each other is the way you treat me, and of course the Father and I are one. Behavior. Christian behavior is determinative by the way we treat each other, not by what we say to God. Although that's important, that we worship God and do all those things which we would call prayer and worship. In our day, it's much more complicated, economically at least, the way we treat each other. I can give money out the car window to some guy standing on a traffic island with a sign that says homeless, and that's charity. And that's not a bad thing to do. Although many times you may be giving it to somebody who's just too lazy to work. That's a possibility. But it really doesn't make any difference if it's coming from your heart. But in our world, there are millions of people who are figuratively standing on a traffic island with their hand out, not because they're too lazy to work, but because there's no work available. Or too lazy to farm because they're living under tremendous drought conditions. Or because their government is controlling all the wealth in the country, and they can't do a thing about it because they don't live in a democratic country like we think we do. This is systemic poverty. This is very, very difficult to handle. And I can't do it individually, and you can't do it individually, but I think we need to be aware of it, because systemic poverty, as all other systemic evils, are still our responsibility, especially those who live in a so-called democratic society. That's why we are if we're going to take care of the needs of our brothers and sisters, it doesn't just mean the man on the traffic island. It means the man and the woman and the child on the other side of the planet who are also our brothers and sisters and may being affected by the economic system which has been imposed upon them, sometimes not only by their own government, but often by ours. Ours, for whom we have responsibility and some control. That's why political life, political activity, being involved in your country, your city, your state, your county is important for us as Christians. It's pretty obvious that one part of the world is suffering from overweight and the other part of the world is suffering from starvation. And that means that we're not behaving towards our brothers and sisters as God wants us to behave, because all of the goods of the planet, of whatever kind, were given by God to all of the inhabitants of the planet. And when they get what they need for their sustenance, and we do too, it's called justice, distributive justice. And that's a dirty word among a lot of people in politics. So the readings today, all of them, remind us of our responsibility towards each other if we are going to act responsibly towards our God. And if we don't act responsibly towards your God, you better rethink your behavior.